So the first thing I'm going to talk about are the updates to Data Harmony 3.13. So as a lot of you know, we have kind of two versions of the software. We have the Java client that you can install locally and keep on your machine. It's very secure. Most of you use that. But we also have a new kind of offshoot of the software, which is 4.1, which is the dashboard, and that's a web-based client. So I'm going to start talking with the Java stuff. So the first thing we added, and this was straight out of the last dehug, was autocomplete for terms in the thesaurus master search. So one of the things we're trying to do is we're trying to make it easier for you to accomplish the task that you're looking for. So we're always looking for ways to get you to the term you want, or where you want to be in the thesaurus as quickly as possible, and just shave a couple seconds off of every time you do it so that you increase your functionality. So we added autocomplete into the search. It can be triggered by just one character. So you type in C here in this example, and you get a list of all the preferred terms that start with C. It's really useful. Some people find it really, really useful, and it shaves off a lot of time for them. Other people find it distracting, so we actually put a toggle button at the top that says, I want it turned on or turned off. Yeah, it works off the preferred terms. We had an internal debate about whether or not it should just be preferred terms or also non-preferred terms. We kind of settled on preferred terms, but it's still up in the air. If you guys feel strongly, let us know. But yeah, it's designed to shave some time off of every time you do a search inside of the source master. So here's an example of it. On the left, it's been turned off. So I'm typing in computer and nothing is coming up. But then when I turn it on and I type in COMPU, it drops down all of the possible preferred terms: computer architecture, computer software, computer hardware, computers. So again, just designed to speed up the processing of searching inside of the source master. We also added a lot of auto-completion in the rule builder module. A lot of you don't necessarily realize it, but there already was auto-completion in the rule builder module. So that's what you can see here at the bottom, where I've typed in if, and then it pops up a list of potential next things that you want to type, if you want to do all caps or around or near. This already existed, but it wasn't surfaced as effectively as we could, so we expanded out the autocomplete function inside of Rule Builder to further facilitate that. So we added autocomplete for TTMs. So for those of you that are less familiar, that's text to matches. It's the trigger word for the Rule Builder. So if you start typing in the TTM window, it'll suggest all the TTMs that it thinks you might be going for, and you can select it from the list and jump straight to that rule. It allows you to essentially skip the search functionality and do everything inside of the Rule Builder window itself. Again, shaving off a couple of seconds off of every time you do a rule, which ends up adding up to a fair amount of time. We also added autocomplete to the use statements. So when you do Rule Builder and you have a use statement, you have to say, this is going to point to this preferred term from the thesaurus. Now, instead of having to look up that term or making sure you spell the term correctly, you can start typing the term and it will give you a drop-down list of preferred terms and, again, speed up your rule building. And these act in addition to rule conditions, which are also auto-completed as the example shows. So here you can see examples of it. So on the left, I've typed in music into the TTM box, and it's dropping down all of the TTMs that exist at that point in time. So you can easily jump to the rule for music theory, or the rule for music styles, or the complex rule for music, which has the wildcard. And here on the right, you can see the drop-down based on the use statement. So again, I typed in the beginning of music, and it's suggesting all the preferred terms that it thinks might be relevant based on that initial type. So this is another feature we added. We're constantly trying to adapt the software to be more dynamic and to facilitate linked data and all that kind of stuff. So we added linked thesauri. So now you can have multiple thesauri and link them together through external related terms. So we're all familiar with related terms, but now related terms can reach out to a different thesauri completely. these can be set up in the admin module, so you say, this thesauri is going to link to this thesauri, and you can do as many as you want. So if you want to link to a dozen thesauri, you can do that. If you only want to link to one, you can do that. Importantly, these links are dynamic. So as long as both projects are running, you can change a term in one project and it will update the external related field in a different project. So it's pushing us closer to true linked data and the ability to use multiple controlled vocabularies in tandem. The back end is pretty complicated, but it's pretty useful in the front end for editors because we no longer have to worry about deviating terms, or if I change the term here, where else is it going to affect? Like I said, there's an unlimited number of linked projects. You can set up as many or as few as you want based on your use case. And it's part of our ongoing initiative to facilitate linked data. So here you can see the admin module. We've added a pane for linked projects on the side. You go into it and you say, I want to add links or I want to remove links. You can select the first project from a drop-down list and the second project from a drop-down list. And then they're linked and you have a field for it. So here we've linked two projects. This is a drug thesaurus and a concept thesaurus for American Society of Hematology. And here you can see the actual field itself. It's just like the regular fields. You can add a term or remove a term or visualize a term. And you have a search functionality. So you can search inside of the other project in order to find the term you're looking for. And you can add as many as you want. And here you can see when you have added it, you get the external related term. It tells you what the term is, and it also tells you in square brackets what the project is. So you can go into the project and find the term itself and facilitate moving between these two projects in tandem. We also have enhanced our REST API support. I was frantically trying to research REST APIs this morning and try and get my head around it, and I will not pretend like I fully understand it. But now Data Harmony features support for REST APIs. So we already have a large library of API functionality, and this just further expands our API library so that you can achieve whatever kind of integration you're looking for from whatever your platform is, which programmers tell me is really awesome. Inline tagging, we have further refined. So inline tagging we've had for a long time. A lot of you use it. What it does is it scans the text for the triggering TTM, and then it marks it with the preferred term. So it says, okay, I saw music theory. Like at its simplest, it would say, I saw music theory in the text. This is related to music theory. Or you can use it with complex rules. So you can say, okay, I saw music in the text. I can infer based on the complex rule that we're talking about music theory and tag it off of music. This has always worked perfectly fine. Everybody seemed happy with it. But then we started to try and tag with multiple thesauri at once. And that led to a bunch of interesting problems that we didn't predict. So the tags themselves are pretty straightforward if you only have one thesaurus, because you just find the terms, you put the tag, you find the term, you put the tag. But when you start to have multiple thesauri, you have to do things like ignore the tags to see words that would be separated by the tags, or make sure that your tagging remains valid, because you can end up with a situation where you break the XML or the tags that you're using in a certain situation. So here's an example of this. There's project 1, which has the term design, and project 2, which has computer-aided design. So when you're scanning the text, here's some text that says, by using computer-aided design, researchers can whatever. We go through and we find design, and we tag design, and then we go through again, ignore the tags we've assigned for design, and then also see computer-aided design, and tag that, and then we make sure that the two tags are nested correctly, rather than having the first tag end after design and then breaking the nested structure. So I keep touching that. That was actually pretty complex to do. It seems simple to us, but programmatically it's a pretty complex thing to constantly ignore tags and understand the dynamic and then check as you go to make sure that the tagging is still accurate. So This took some time and some tinkering, but we were able to do it, and now we can inline tag with essentially an unlimited number of projects. So again, promoting your ability to use multiple thesauri in tandem and empowering you to do whatever you need to do with your specific data with these tools. So we also added in a filtered list into Rule Builder. This is similar to the autocomplete initiatives. It's designed to shave off time that the editors use in the Rule Builder window. So right now, if you're looking to search in the Rule Builder window, you click on search and it pops up a search box for you and you can search all these assorted queries. Now we've added a pane to the left side of the Rule Builder window to essentially allows you to browse TTMs. So it'll give you a list of every TTM in the rule base, and then you can filter it based on the top, so you can, like with autocomplete, you can start typing something and it will say, okay, you're probably going for one of these TTMs. Initially it loads all of them, but you can sort through it really quickly. And when you click on a TTM from the side filter, it will immediately populate the Rule Builder window, so you can easily get to that TTM. So here's an example of it. On the left side, you can see the Rule Builder window, and on the left side, you can see the filtering list. This is a list of every one of the TTMs in this project. It's very large. As such, it's kind of useful because you can figure out which TTM you're going for. And of course, all this works with the traditional search stuff, so you can always do a traditional search. But when you start typing in the top, it will filter the list and will make it so that you can only see the TTMs that are meeting your filter criteria, and allows you to just click on that and then boom, you're inside of that rule. So this is a pretty powerful tool, again, designed to shave off a couple of seconds for the editors. So you're going to notice a reoccurring theme where we're trying to make it easier and easier for editors to do things. And this comes from our direct experience. Obviously, we work in this software a lot, so we realized after clicking the search box a number of times that this could be faster. And also from you guys, giving us suggestions. We're always open for suggestions. If you guys have a good idea, please just let us know. We also increased the ability to access the Rule Builder directly from TestMAI. So as many of you know, you can copy text into TestMAI and say, okay, tell me which terms are returned. I want to know, why is this term being returned? Why is that term being returned? And right now, you've been transitioned into the Rule Builder window to edit the TTMs that are being triggered. That seemed like an unnecessary step, so what we did is we cloned the Rule Builder functionality in a pop-up box inside of TestMAI. So you no longer need to switch between the two. You can access the TTMs directly from the results box. So you get the result box that says, okay, here's the terms that are returned. And you can say, okay, I want to know about this one, and you can click on it. And it will give you a list of all of the TTMs that were triggered for that term that you can edit right there, rather than having to go to the Rule Builder menu. So here's an example of it. Here I've pasted some text into the TestMAI box. And then you can click Get MAI, and you get your list of returns. And then I can say, okay, I want to know why this one was triggered, or I want to edit this TTM box. So you can double click on one of those terms, and you get this pop-up box. So it's exactly like the Rule Builder. You can look at it, you can edit it directly in here. And you can see on the left this list of TTMs. These were all TTMs that were triggered by this text. So it allows you to quickly edit these without having to switch back and forth. And again, it shaves off a couple of seconds from each edit that you're doing. So combining all these things together, we think that it facilitates much quicker editorial interaction with the software. We also added new features into Batch. So the new feature, Batch MAI, is how you process large amounts of documents at once through MAI. This allows the users to choose which XML tags you want to run. So instead of saying, okay, you probably have a title and a body and an abstract tag, and those are the things that we're going to look at, you can now specify it directly. So you can say, I'm interested in getting this tag and this tag and this tag, or this tag for this other content. You can determine that yourself. The editors can do that. You set the tags that you want to run, and then you can also assign weights to it. So weighting is something a lot of you have done, and we do programmatically all the time. But now you can do it yourself with inside a batch. So you can say, I want the title to have 5 times the weight of the abstract, and I want the abstract to have 3 times the weight of the body. All of this is accessible within MAI batch itself. You just type it in and you tell it what to do and hit go, and it does it. So those are the major updates to 3.13, which is the Java client. The Java client, again, is very secure and powerful, and these features are going to be pushed forward to 4.1 because 4.1 relies on the Java client as its backend. So we'll see these features begin to emerge inside of 4.1 over the next couple of months. Now it is available on the dashboard. We improved Sys's UI, which is not, yes, Marty?
What does Sys do?
Sys is an XML content repository, so it works as an XML database that centralizes your disparate content areas. So if you have a bunch of records and you don't want to do a full database of all of your records, you can create a Sys database which will retain the metadata inside of an XML structure. A lot of you already use it, and I'm actually going to give a talk on that tomorrow, so we can expand on what Sys does. That's what Sys does in a nutshell. So we've improved the UI. One of the common complaints about Sys was that it looked old, which is valid. So now we've reskinned it, and we've given it a more intuitive layout that we think will help people utilize it and facilitate their interaction with the software. We have retained the same robust functionality from the desktop client. So again, in 4.0 and 4.1, we're using the Java client as the backend. So the functionality you have in the Java client is being surfaced in 4.0 and 4.1 now in a web browser. So the features you already are enjoying inside of Java, you can access more readily and easily through the web browser. Again, that's not for everybody. So some of you really have security concerns. You don't want to be able to access it through the web browser because it potentially could open up a security hole. Other people don't really care. They just want to have the easy accessibility that a web browser gives you. It also allows us to centralize different Sys projects. So some of you have numerous Sys projects. I think that one of our clients has 8 or 9 Sys projects running in parallel. Some of these are test projects that they're using to test specific things. Some of them are the main live projects. But in the current Java client, you have to log into each one independently, which doesn't utilize the editor's time as effectively as it could. So inside of 4.1, we've added the ability to switch between projects on the fly. So instead of having to log into a new project each time, you're allowed to just select a new project from a drop-down list and move on to the other section of the project in the same way that you could move to a different doc set, and I can explain this all in tomorrow's presentation, within the current Java program. It also has improved the ability to edit authority files. So authority files, we all know, are important. Controlled vocabularies are important. But it's often hard to edit an authority file that's being referenced by an entire project. In 4.1, we built in the editorial functionality of authority files into the web app itself. So if you decide that there's a new language and you want to add a new language to your project, you don't have to go to a programmer or come to us and say, how do I add this into this authority file? You can add it yourself. Obviously, languages probably don't change that much, but maybe you have a new journal code, or you have a new type of person, like a researcher or something like that. You can easily add those, and then it will trickle forward. So your authority file will then have that piece of content in it, and you can use it and reference it inside of your sys data itself. So here's sys inside of the web browser, the 4.1. It looks very similar to the Java client. This is the landing page, which has been simplified. So up here on the left, you have a drop-down that says which project are you going to be in. So you can select from any number of projects. Again, there's no limit in the number of projects that you can set up and tie into sys with. And then when you selected your project, you can then select the document set inside of your project. So for example, maybe Daryl here has a project, and then inside of that project, there are records for individual people, and also records for individual organizations, and also records for individual journals, let's say. So you can select the project and then pivot between those three types of content objects on the fly. As you do so, the fields for that particular content item are displayed at the bottom of the search page. You can determine which ones you care about in an individual search and only get that information. So here's kind of a zoom in of that. Here I've got a drop-down menu, so in this one project I created, I have 5 separate document types, and I can select one, and it will pop up all of the information accordingly. And then once you're in it, the system knows which fields you care about, because it's defined in the schema in the doc set, so it knows that this portion of this project for people cares about first name and last name and what their role is. Or for institutions, it has the address of the institution and what kind of stuff they do. All of this is determined inside of the doc set itself. So when you set it, it will dynamically give you that information, and it will show you that inside of the single record view as well as any kind of export that you do. Here is search. So we have, this is authority file, sorry. You can click on the authority file in the upper portion of the screen, and it will give you a list of every single authority file. You can then go through the list, so that's what we're seeing in the upper left. You can then go through the list and double click on one and be able to edit it. So you can delete terms, you can add new terms, you can edit terms, all on the fly, and then when you've done it, it then updates the authority file backend for the system, and any new records you add will have to coincide with that authority file. Again, encouraging best practices and controlling your vocabulary and keeping it all focused. So here again, you can double click and it'll bring up a new window. And then you have these 2 buttons to easily add or delete, making it easy to edit. So you can also add new records. Once you've chosen a project and a doc set, the system knows what kind of record you're going to add. So it knows which fields you care about, and then it can populate a blank record window that you can then add new records with. Record ascension numbers are automatically assigned, so you don't have to worry about creating a new record and it somehow the system being mixed up and saying, well, what record is 1000? I see 2 of them or something like that. It's endlessly adding new accession numbers, so you don't have to worry about the back end being mixed up. And then the new record window will populate with the fields based on the doc set that you've chosen and the individual schema you've chosen. So if you choose one specific kind of schema over another, it will dynamically show you just the fields you're looking for in that situation. These fields, just like in the Java client, can be defined independently. So some are free text entries. So for a first name of somebody, for example, that's not something you can control. You need the ability to just type in something. You can have pick lists. So these would go off of the authority files that you can edit on the fly. They force the user to put in a control term from your authority file. You can have drop-down menus. You can also determine whether or not this field is a single or multiple entry field. So for something like a name, you only have one name usually. But if you have a role, for example, you can have multiple roles. You can be an editor, you can be a reviewer, you can be both simultaneously. So sys allows you to determine what kind of format you want that field's information to be structured as. All of this can be set in the schema. It's pretty robust, pretty powerful tool. So here on the main window, you have a new record button. So once you have set your doc set, you can then just create a new record on the fly. You click on the new record button, and it pops up a window with all of the valid fields for that document set. And you can just start typing in, and then you can save. We've also retained the ability to export reports. So this is one of the more useful functions in SYS, and we find ourselves using it a lot. You can export any of the data inside of a SYS database in a spreadsheet format. So what you do is you say, down here you see these check boxes for individual fields inside of this doc set. You determine which fields you want to know about. So some of our clients have a lot of fields. I think the highest we have is 120 or something like that. But you don't always want to have all of that information. So you can say, I'm only curious about the titles and the URLs, or I'm only curious about the people in these records. You can determine exactly which fields you want by selecting them down here, and then you can set a search query for what records you want. So you determine which fields you want in the result, and you also determine exactly what search query will give you the records you're looking for. So maybe you only want records between 1990 and 1992, and you only care about the title and the URL for those records. You can easily set that. You can easily do an export. You have it in a spreadsheet format. You can pass it off to any interested parties. They can look at it. They can edit it. Surfacing the information, again, any way possible in order to facilitate you guys to utilize it and play with the data and expand it and enhance it, leverage it. We also have the ability to import records. So again, this is very similar to the Java client. You can import records in mass. So you can import, you could just manually type in a single record, or you can import 100,000. It's up to you. You set the number of fields that you want. You tell it this field is going to be here and this field is going to be here, and then the system just runs with it. And you hit import. Right now, both the export and the import are focused on spreadsheets. In the Java client, we have the ability to export XML records and a number of other varieties. But we found through using the system that most people end up using spreadsheets. We're familiar with it. We're all really quick with Excel. We're very comfortable with it. So right now we're focused on that. But again, we're very receptive to your needs. So if you say, I really like this system, but I want the ability to export the XML records directly, or I want to export them in this other format, you can tell us, and it's easy for us to add in that functionality. But right now we're trying to focus on the things we know you use, and we know you use a lot. SysSearch is really powerful. It's powered by Lucene. You're able to specify specific fields that you want to search, as well as just a generic search everything search. It allows Boolean operator functionality, and it allows you to search an infinite number of parameters. So here's the search pane that you've kind of been seeing throughout this time. You can see there's a bunch of different query boxes. So the first thing you'll see is that they're Boolean operators, so you can set a search that says, I want all the records between 1990 and 1995, but I don't want any records that have Heather as an author. We're good on Heather, don't worry about her. Or you can do an OR condition, and you can do AND conditions. So you have all the ability to chain together Boolean operators, much like you do with the rule builder and other things. You can specify individual types of search. So do you want it to just be a word in the box? Do you want it to be an exact match for this term? Do you want it to be less than a certain number or greater than a certain number? So I only care about records that are before 1990 or only after 1990. You can set those queries. And then you can chain together as many of these as you want. So you have an infinite number of parameters that you can put together in order to get you exactly the search query you want for whatever your purpose is. Maybe you want to pull a report, Maybe you want to surface this functionality through API on a web service. You can set whatever you want. It's complete customization. You can do whatever you want. It's a really robust search, and it's really powerful if you know how to use it. You can also obviously remove parameters. If you have a bunch of them, you clicked on the add parameter button 15 times and say, oh, I don't actually need that, I only need 2. You can remove parameters as well. Another thing that we have been doing is we're constantly trying to increase the ability for end users to interact with data. So on that front, visualization and visualization functions are really key. Most of you have played with the dashboard 4.0 or have seen assorted versions of our visualizations. Now we're trying to surface that in search harmony features, essentially, so that the end user can also utilize that visualization information. So here, this is a beta we did for ASCE. This is a sunburst graphic. So it's the same sunburst graphic you would get if you tied it into your thesaurus. So when you're in 4.0, you can do visualizations of your data. You can surface this and push it forward to anybody, and it makes it more interactive as we're all becoming more and more used to in the current technological environment. Everything is now interactive. But you can also tie this functionality into other things. So in this example, we've taken the ASCE thesaurus and we've created the ability for you to click on individual portions of this graphic and it'll expand out. I can show you here in a second this at work. And then it performs a search on the side. So here I've clicked on water and water resources, and it's performed a search on the side and said, okay, these are the records that you might be interested in. This is just one of numerous visualizations we have. We find it one of the more useful visualizations, but there are 1,000 use cases for 1,000 different kinds of visualizations. So it really depends on you and your specific